Yeah. Let me first of all say that I met Chukwuma for the first time. Okay. Okay. We met for the first time in 1986. He was 21 years old at that time, and they were about the same age. So we met at the University of Nigeria on soccer. It was a very turbulent moment when to be a student at UNN, and a radical student for that matter, was more or less like confrontation with death. Because at that time we had the massive youth movement, and it was at a point that some students had been expelled, and Femi Falana came to the school to stand in for us as our lawyers from Akaba Shono Chambers. So Chukwuma came in 1986, and that same year, you know, he started to fraternize with us, and a few months later, he joined the massive youth movement. And within a very short time, he rose to be a member of the Central Working Committee because he stood out for integrity, for dedication, and then for humanity. Many of us who claim to be radical people, they are just not humane. But Chukwuma was a human being that will feel for you. At that time, when you don't, you know, we go from one place to the other looking for money to eat. We used to call it without. Without at that time meant 80 kobo of food without meat for we poor students. Each time you go and meet Chukwuma in his hall, not a rich student, but we always find something for you to eat. So it's somebody with compassion for humanity. And I think for the 40 years that we've been interacting until this last breath, he lived up to that faith. I've been asked to read. I actually said I wanted to speak offhand because I have his history for 40 years on my tips. But I think that let me stick to the protocol to read from page 72, which is about aspects of his human rights life. 1993 was a turbulent year. I'm reading from page 72. It was the year of the popular June 12 election that threw Alhaji Moshood Kashimawo Abiola into the center of national political attention when the election was annulled by Ibrahim Babangida. Innocent could not have joined CLO at a more opportune time. The student struggle had served as a training ground for him. Now he and his comrades were in the thick of the direct struggle against military dictatorship. Innocent and his colleagues in CLO, of which I was one of them, Constitutional Rights Project, Campaign for Democracy, United Action for Democracy, CDA, and other groups led the advocacy for the promotion of the protection of human rights under the very tyrannical military regime. Innocent, as Director of International Campaigns for CLO, traveled widely with other pro-democracy and human rights activists to campaign and lobby for sanctions against the Babangida and Abacha regimes. Locally, various protest marches were organized. This put him and his co-campaigners in the bad books of the junta. Babangida, popularly known as IBB, had succeeded General Muhammad Buhari, who took over power in 1983 December. Chukwuma shows the title of president. Okay. Buhari had become increasingly repressive, and IBB, who overthrew his government in October 1985, initially presented his intervention as a more temperate alternative. He shows the title of a president and eased restrictions on freedom of expression. And shortly after coming to power, he established a broad-based political bureau to conduct a national debate on the political future of Nigeria. Specifically, the body was mandated to review Nigeria's political history and identify the basic problems which have led to our failure in the past and suggest ways of resolving and coping with those problems. Now let's go to page 154, which has to do with Innocent's work as the founder of Clean Foundation, which he established in January 1998. Clean was a product of two circumstances, as Innocent aptly captured when the organization became 10 years old in 2008. The first circumstance arose from Innocent's role as coordinator of the police project at CLO. Innocent became increasingly frustrated with the vicious cycle of human rights abuses that require constant court appearances with lawyers. Most times, when these cases were struck out, they will make the news, after which they will wait for another violation to happen and head to court again. While the closing of these cases brought publicity, Innocent felt it failed to make a deep impact. This was the time when Innocent received the nomination for the Reebok Human Rights Award, which came with a cash prize of $25,000. When accepting the award in Boston, USA, in December 1986, he announced that he would be using the prize money to set up an NGO that will address a missing element in mainstream human rights advocacy. The supply side of justice. For years, NGOs had focused on the demands side, continually demanding that the police force be held accountable for gross human rights violations by their officers. However, in making these demands, enough questions weren't being asked about the capacity of the police and other law enforcement institutions to respond to the demands being made. I want to tell you that at this time, so many things happened that history has failed to capture. I was just searching the internet now looking for the Okoba killings, where 8 people from the same father and mother were murdered. After this killing, we went to court and were able to get judgment. They gave a check to the family. The day they got that check in the bank, going home, the lady that came to collect that check was murdered. So I was even trying to check on the internet to look for Okoba killings. I couldn't find it. So Innocent was a very passionate person that came at the most turbulent time in Nigerian history, and he played his part in a very honest and transparent manner. Somebody mentioned somebody said something about his fearlessness. Let me just mention something that happened that buttressed this case. I think around 1995, we were going to Zaria. So Akabasho had given us a vehicle to travel there to, mobilize the people against the military and all that. So when we got there, myself, Innocent Chukwuma, Uche Onyegocha, Nasiru Kura, Imai Zazo, and many other people, Aturu. So we are coming back. And then we got to Kaduna and then getting to Jeba. There was a reckless trailer coming. There was no way we could have survived. I can't even know how we managed to survive. So our boss was coming, and then on the left, on the right, valley, ditches on both sides. This trailer just came recklessly and just less than 3 inches between our vehicle and that trailer. So in fact, it was like confrontation with death in its rawest, in the most naked form. So while afraid, everybody was quiet after that incident. Then Chukwuma said something. He said, "You people miss a very unique opportunity that you will never regain in your life." I said, what are you talking? Is something wrong with you? He said, "You are fighting against the military, Abacha. If you people have died here, Abacha will have sent the high power delegation to your burial." That tells you that in a very terrible situation that you are even afraid, Chukwuma will just, make you laugh and all that kind of thing. So we've lost a very great man, somebody who left a legacy of honesty, good conscience, and integrity. Things that are absent in Nigeria, which has brought Nigeria to this state of affairs that we find ourselves. But I think these badges of honesty, integrity, and good conscience is what his wife and his children will carry as badges on their head. And it will see them through the difficult moments of life for generations. Thank you very much.